Viewers, this is the biggest aviation exclusive that you would have seen in a long time. Remember the Ahmedabad air crash? According to the preliminary report released on the 12th of July 2025 by India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, the crash was caused by the loss of thrust in both engines after the fuel control switches moved from run to cut-off position. Now the big exclusive today, during the operation of Air India flight AI-132 from London Heathrow to Bengaluru, the crew reported abnormal behavior of the left engine fuel control switch on Boeing 7879 aircraft. During engine start, the switch failed to remain in the locked in the run position on 2 attempts, moving towards cutoff. A malfunction that could, under specific conditions, lead to an inadvertent engine shutdown in the flight. We've accessed the report by the crew of the flight on the malfunction. Look at that particular image on your screens. In fact, if I can request my team to just shift the image a bit to the right side so we can read out what has been specifically written. You can look at the sector. It is VTANX AIC132 that is written. The sector is LHR or London Heathrow. There is Bengaluru or BLR that has been written. The time of the chokes off and the chokes on are there, which is of course the time when the specific time of the duration of the flight is 21:19 and 6:23. That's the duration of the flight, which is a little over 9 hours. Now, but what is clear amongst this 9 hours and 9 minutes of flying is the very fact, and of course the date is also mentioned, of course 2026, 1st of February 2026. It is very specifically written that the left fuel control switch slips from run to cut off when pushed down slightly. It does not lock in its position. This is a very, very important aspect. Why? Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to tell you why. Because Arunil is with us. We're going to be joined by my colleague Shefali Nigam as well, who's getting us more updates on the story. But Arunil, this is massive. And this is massive because we were told in the preliminary report that the fuel switch cannot go off on its own, that there is a lock, there is a spring-loaded mechanism whereby you have to pull the switch up and move it from run to cut-off position. In this case, though, that lock has not worked. And what's more, we know that this was an issue earlier in 2018. Boeing fixed it. We know that Air India had later checked all its flights and said that this is not a possibility of any kind of malfunction. Yet, it has happened once again, raising some very real concerns about how safe are the 787s. Arunil.
Certainly, yes, Madhav. In fact, Air India has given out a latest statement confirming that one of the pilots reported about these fuel control switches malfunction. There was a problem in it, and the same matter has been communicated now to the DGCA as well. Air India is saying that we had done a thorough inspection of our fuel control switches after the directive from the DGCA, after obviously that horrific crash in Ahmedabad, which killed as many as 241 who were on board. One person had survived at that time who was on board. 260 total people. That also included students who were studying in a college as well, because that flight had crashed on that college premises. Now, Madhav, the real question over here is that there was a kind of a communication that was being made by the DGCA to Air India to check all their fuel control switches. And that time as well, Air India said that we have checked it, everything is proper. The AAIB preliminary report also tried to blame the pilot in command in this, saying that it was manually done by the pilot in command, and Times Now was the only channel that time questioning the preliminary report of the AIB, basically saying that how can you directly blame the pilot in command in this matter? What about the 2018 directive from the FAA, that is the US regulator, to Boeing, raising questions on the same fuel control switches, and now another incident taking place.
All right,
in a long
Arunil, I'm coming to you, but I just want to tell our viewers we're the only channel with this document which is showing you exactly what happened. We're going to pan a little bit to the right. We're going to leave out that yellow part, and I'm going to request my producers to zoom in so that you know what exactly has been written by the crew in black and white. And Shefali is joining us. Shefali, we have Air India, which says that it has informed the DGCA. We have DGCA sources, AIB sources who we've spoken to. What has the DGCA sources, what are they telling us? And Air India has also confirmed that this particular aircraft has now been grounded.
Yes, correct, Madhav. We have spoken to the DGCA in the DGCA, and the sources have told us that the airline has informed them about the incident, and now the Air India has also come out with a statement stating that they are aware of the particular incident, and now that they have grounded the aircraft. Apart from that, in the AAIB, we Times Now spoke to the AAIB sources, and when asked about if this particular incident is going to change the entire investigation of AI-171 crash, because it was being said in the earlier reports by the Western media as well, blaming the pilots outright.
Absolutely.
Now they are saying, the AIB is saying that we are going to study based on fact. We will study based on facts reported by operator and DGCA or airworthiness section.
All right, we're taking that. That's the next bit of breaking news. We're updating on the story. AAB sources are telling us that we will study based on facts reported by operator and DGCA airworthiness section. Very, very significant response that's coming in. Let me quickly bring in Arunil also on this. Arunil, now AAIB says that they will study based on facts reported by operator and DGCA airworthiness section. Yet, this is the most befitting reply to all those, including those in the Western media, who are trying to pin the blame on the Indian pilot without adequate information based on just the circumstantial evidence, and even on audio clip, the complete clip of which was not provided. Arunil.
Well, Western media was basically that entire preliminary report of the AIB was released or basically selectively given out by the US researchers who were there. Basically, were they trying to protect any big company, any big manufacturer of the who basically manufactures the aircraft, Boeing in this case? That is also a big question that comes to the fore. In fact, that time as well, the Western media tried to protect and tried to pin the blame entirely on the pilot in command. We were the only channel at Times Now who questioned it, saying that there may be an issue with the fuel control switches as well, because such kind of a similar issue was raised by the FAA as well. And despite thorough checks and balances which Air India is saying that they have done, Boeing is also saying that they have done multiple times, especially after the Ahmedabad crash. Again, the same issue.
All right, and Boeing has also responded very quickly. Boeing, of course, has come out to say they're going to defer it to the customer. Shefali, very quickly, what is Boeing saying?
Yes, correct. When reached out to Boeing, now Boeing has issued a statement saying that we will have to defer it to the customer, which clearly states that there is no particular statement from the Boeing side where they are not giving a clarity about how safe their aircrafts are.
So they are clearly passing the buck. It's being passed on from the aircraft manufacturer to the airline operator. We've seen the DGCA and the AIB, those who are supposed to provide the report. The safety regulator in India, the DGCA as well, has been apprised, and this has serious implications. This has serious implications for the global fleet of 787-9 aircraft that are now currently flying globally. We do know that Air India and other airlines are currently flying this particular aircraft. How safe are these? How safe are these fuel switches? And heaven forbid, there should be any safety incident because of the lack of safety measures as far as this particular fuel switch is concerned. I'd like to thank both Arunil and Shefali for joining us on the story. We're going to take it across to our guests. With us is Captain Amit Singh, aviation expert and founder of Safety Matters Foundation. Captain Meenu Wadia is founder, president of the Federation of Indian Pilots. Captain Saurabh Bhatnagar is a former A320 pilot joining us. Coming to you first, Captain Amit Singh, serious implications at this. And let me play devil's advocate. In this particular document, they say that the fuel switch does not lock on. Now, there might be, AIB officials, there might be the airline tomorrow, Boeing, which comes down and says that this particular report talks about the fact that it does lock on, and that when it is pushed down slightly, it moves position. Is it possible that the aircraft in the case of the Ahmedabad crash, this would have applied? If so, why? If not, why? Captain Amit Singh.
Well, we cannot say anything for sure right now because we don't have any data of the Air India 171 accident in which the fuel control switches were moved at time 4:2 as per the preliminary report. But there was a cascading electrical failure before that, the RAT deployed. So all this has to be looked in totality. Boeing has had a series of problems, not just with electrical, but the fuel control switch. And there are certain videos which have surfaced of kind of a rain shower and a flood in the E&E compartment where all the electricals are there. There's a lot of water on the same night, on 12th night, when this crash happened, the same night an aircraft was grounded in Vienna with a lot of water in the E&E compartment. So there are a number of issues which Boeing has to address, and someone in the regulatory authority has to question them based on facts. The issue is that we ourselves are not very aware of what's happening, what's in the design of the Boeing 787, so we're not able to question them properly. Nor is AAIB able to do that. That is why they were going for the pilot suicide angle theory, because unless you have a solid technical issue which you can pinpoint, there are a lot of anomalies here. A lot of questions which arose during the preliminary regarding the rear black box, the ELT not working. So all those things, when you say there is no technical recommendation, so that is where the problem is. There is no transparency and independence.
That's a very, very serious point. There are serious anomalies between what we saw as far as the preliminary report is concerned and this particular incident is concerned. What the public was told as far as the checking of these particular switches is concerned, what Boeing said it has rectified way back in 2018, I believe. And that is why, Captain Meena Wadia, we're not going to jump into any conclusions at the moment. But there is an Air India statement that my colleague Shafali was referring to. I'm just going to quickly read out that particular statement because that is very significant as far as the story is concerned. They say that we are aware that one of our pilots has reported a possible defect on the fuel control switch of a Boeing 7878 aircraft. After receiving this initial information, we have grounded the said aircraft and are involving the OEM to get the pilot's concerns checked on a priority basis. The matter has been communicated to aviation regulator DGCA. Air India had checked the fuel control switches on all Boeing 787 aircraft in its fleet after the directive from the DGCA and had found no issues. At Air India, the safety of our passengers and crew remains top priority. Captain Meenu Wadia, we are not going to jump to any conclusions. There are questions that have to be asked, but safety regulators, the Aircraft Accident Investigation Board, the investigators into the Ahmedabad crash, Boeing itself, all have their work cut out because there are some serious questions that emerge from such an incident. Captain Wadia.
There are two totally isolated issues that we are talking about. I'm not going to comment on the crash itself and why that crash happened because the DFDR data has a lot of information that can be analyzed and it is not done here. I'm only commenting on what the information that you have passed today, and nothing makes sense to me at all. First of all, when the aircraft took off, it had adequate power. And because it had adequate power, it accelerated and climbed to almost 600 feet and it's got a speed of 180 knots. At that point in time, the only thing that the pilots were required to do and should have done, and I must have done, is putting the landing gear up. And as you've seen from the videos, the landing gear is not up. It is down throughout the flight to start with. Also, what you're commenting on the switches, at that point in time, if both switches cannot malfunction simultaneously, if at all, which is not likely at all, one switch is defective, okay, you'll have probably engine failure on one engine. One engine is enough power to make the aircraft climb and not make it crash at all. So what you have stated and what the information has been fed just now by the DGCA or the Air India does not make any sense to me at all. Because if you coordinate facts, it's not fixing the dots at all. So the switch business has no role in this comments that you're asking for today.
Okay, switch business has no role. Captain Amit Singh, is that a fact? Do you believe that the switches do not play an important role as far as the crash investigation or as far as the safety of the aircraft are concerned? And why are we raising this? Because we know there is a history to this. We know that Boeing itself has had to clarify this issue about 7 or 8 years ago.
Well, Boeing issued a safety information bulletin, which Air India treated it as advisory, that we need not implement it. So they never implemented this or checked the aircrafts. Now, the same thing has happened. It has not happened once, multiple times with Boeing. In the 757s, when they came in, there was a flap asymmetry issue. And the US airlines who were new to the aircraft the instructors were kind of testing it on the simulators. They found this anomaly that when you extend slabs and give a failure, flap asymmetry, the aircraft is uncontrollable. goes into a steep bank. Boeing said it will never happen, and it happened in service. So this thing also Boeing said will never happen, and it happened. So safety doesn't work like that. See, you have to see the probability, the probability and the consequences. The consequences are catastrophic. So you have to take extreme, serious measures, even though it is an inflammatory bulletin. So that is how the safety management system has been highlighted by DGCA, that it is not functional. There's so many issues at Air India. They really need to look at how the safety is managed. And even the regulator, Air India was waiting for the regulator to give them instructions to check the fuel switches.
Right.
They should have done it on their own rather than waiting for the regulator. So that is the kind of the safety culture which is prevailing. If you talk about Air India 171, yes, the failure happened well before the fuel control switches moved, because there are a number of reasons for that. The preliminary report says the maximum speed attained recorded was 180 knots. It doesn't say as per black box. It says recorded, which means there was some electrical disturbance which was happening, and 180 was the maximum good speed which was recorded. Any logical person would say that the maximum speed would be when the fuel control switches are cut off.
Okay. And
But
Captain
here,
Wadia, beyond the fuel control
was...
switches, beyond what has happened as far as the probe investigation, it is a fact that even in the US Senate, there is a whistleblower report that has cited the past electrical failures of the Boeing 787. So it's not just here in India, but in fact, internationally in US, where the FAA is, where Boeing itself manufactures its aircraft, there are some very serious concerns that have been expressed about past electrical failures.
What you are asking for is something specific about the switches, and that's what caused the accident. There are a lot of defects which happen in Boeing also, in DGCA also, in India also. But what you are asking today, did the crash happen because the switches moved to the idle position? That is exactly what I'm saying. No, that is because to start with, if at all they had moved, they could have moved, both cannot move simultaneously to start with, if at all. First of all, it's not even likely that one switch could have moved on its own from the on switch to the off switch. And both happening, it's almost impossible.
Okay, both happening is almost impossible. Has the impossible happened in the case of Ahmedabad crash? We don't know. It's only the investigators who can tell us. But yes, this is an incident today that raises some very, very serious safety concerns. And we certainly hope that the investigators, the regulators, the airline, the aircraft manufacturer all get down to the bottom of this to ensure that there is a safe flying environment here in India and globally wherever citizens fly this aircraft. Captain Amit Singh, Captain Meenu Wadia, thanks so much for joining us this evening.